Welcome to Lesson 3 of Section 3 of the BJCP training program by Brewers Anonymous. We are wrapping up the judging process section with the lesson, the judging procedure. And this lesson features a demonstration. This is a subject that being able to see and follow along with will very likely help you remember the details being presented in this lesson. And as with every lesson, this particular judging procedure is taken from the BJCP Exam Study Guide. So it's important in terms of your exam prep to understand this particular procedure, even though your procedure will likely evolve and turn into a variation of this process once you get more involved with judging for competitions. So let's get going here. All right, let's take a look at this particular judging procedure. I do have a homebrew to go through. You can follow along with any beer. We're not actually going to judge beers in this lesson. We're going to just go through this procedure. In this case, I have an American wheat beer that I'm going to use as an example. And the first step in this particular procedure is to prepare your score sheet. We're going to go through this as if we're going to manually write out our score sheets. And I have one right here, a blank one. I'm going to put on the screen now what I mean about preparing the score sheets. We're going to start with the left-hand side where we're going to put on our name, our Judge BJCP ID if we have one, our email, our rank, and then on the opposite side of that, we're going to pre-fill in the information on this particular entry. And in this case, the category is 1, the subcategory is D, and this entry number, as an example, we'll use 1, 2, 3, 4. And the subcategory completely spelled out is American wheat beer. Next step, we're going to inspect the bottle. We'll be presented the bottle by the steward, or we'll pull it ourselves from the flight. And a couple things we're looking for. We're going to look at the cap color because we're going to note that so the entrant knows we're judging their beer. We're going to look at the fill level. In this case, it's pretty normal. Most beers appear to be around that level. It's not really high, maybe a touch low if we want to note that on a score sheet as an identifying characteristic of the fill. And we're also going to kind of take a look around the bottle. If we have a flashlight handy, might want to look at the bottom, see if there's anything collecting at the bottom. Could be, if it's a bottle conditioned beer, that there's a small yeast cake. Kind of look inside there, see if there's anything floating around. In this case, everything looks pretty good. So we're going to set that aside and we're going to go on to the next step. So next step in this procedure is to pour the beer. And to do that, we have to open it. So also kind of take a listen to see if there's any kind of hiss. Let me hold up to the mic. In this case, there's a little bit of a hiss. So we know the cap was sealed pretty good and that there is some level of carbonation in this beer. And we'll actually see that a little better as we pour it right now. I don't know what the carbonation level on this is, so I'm going to do a rather aggressive pour to get a head forming, which we do. And from there, we'll go on to the next step. So immediately after pour, you want to take a sample of the aroma. There's a lot of volatile aromas that have been stirred up and are kind of being expressed as the head starts to dissipate. So I'm going to do that now. I do get some distinct characteristics. We're going to not really talk about that because, again, we're not judging this beer. And we're going to go on to the next step, which in this particular procedure is to look at its appearance. And in this case, I am getting a little bit of condensation on the cup, so I'm going to wipe it down. I would prefer to do that with a paper towel to be more thorough, but I did not prepare one. But now I can take a good look at it. I'm getting a really good look at the clarity right now. And maybe if I hold it closer to the camera, you can see that as well. Definitely getting a good look at the color. I did waste a little time in this recording and in this explaining to really judge the size of the head. But normally I obviously would not be talking and doing a demonstration. So I'd be able to kind of note what color the head was, what the size was on pour, and about how long it took to dissipate, if it does at all. So we're now at the point in this procedure where we would start taking notes. We would note down our initial aroma descriptors that we got right off the bat of pouring. We would have filled out probably completely the appearance. That doesn't really change, if at all, during the judging process. So we might have that completed, even scored at this point. And now we're going to go back to the aroma. It's been sitting a little bit, maybe a couple degrees warmer. Some things might have changed. So let's see what the aroma looks like now. So again, I'm getting some very distinct characteristics in the aroma. Now's when I would really start to elaborate on the aroma and how it matches style and anything that doesn't match style, and maybe start considering my score. Or if I think I have a pretty good idea overall where the score may land in the end, I might even put that down now, but with the option of revisiting it later, of course. So now, having started my scoring and evaluation of the beer, I'm going to move on to taste. And I'm going to start off by taking a really small sip to kind of coat my palate, my tongue, back of my throat to get everything acclimated to this particular style of beer. Then after that, I would take another sip and hold it a little bit longer and start really to dissect and think about and start writing down descriptors of what I'm getting in the beer. And I'll do that as an example now because it's a beer and why not have a sip? So in doing that, I'm definitely getting some richer flavors, some more distinct flavors, and a touch of off flavor, I think due to age, in this beer that I didn't get on the initial sip. So I would start writing out those notes now. That aging could be stale, maybe oxidation, something along those lines. Something I would definitely want to note because I'm starting to find the flaw in the beer, and I want to make sure I am being very thorough in my description, both good and bad, of the evaluation of this beer. Once I feel like I have a pretty good handle on the notes I want to share on this beer in flavor, I'm going to move on to mouthfeel. So I'm going to be taking some additional sips, but I'm going to be looking at it in a completely different angle. I'm not looking for the taste of it, the flavor of it. I am literally looking for the feel of it. That's the feel in mouthfeel. So I'm going to take a sip and think of the beer in those terms now. So this is where I start getting some of the more tactile characteristics of the beer, starting with the body. Is it light? Is it kind of watery? Is it medium? Is it really full-bodied? Is it almost syrup-like? Which one of those am I getting out of here? And what am I noting on my score sheet? The carbonation level. Am I feeling the carbonation across my tongue, my palate, and some of it even following through on the finish when I sip it? Or is it very light and almost completely unnoticeable in this beer? What is the feel of this? That's usually described in terms of creaminess. Does it have kind of like a milk-like texture or heavy cream? Is there any kind of feel to it whatsoever? Any palate sensations that come across in this beer, this is where I want to note that. I'm not talking about flavor. I'm not talking about an aroma accompanying with the flavor. I'm strictly talking about the more tactile aspects of this beer. So once I have that component done, I'm ready to give my overall impressions of the beer and really start to explain best I can how it matches style, where it doesn't, and what can be done to the beer to make it closer to style. I don't really want to rehash the specific things I said word for word in the other components, but I may need to preface them in order to explain what I'm going to say next in terms of the flaws or the supporting characteristics of it making it closer to style or almost on style for that matter. And then this is where I really want to start to look at my score. At this point, I have all my scores filled out. I'm going to add them up. Then from there, I'm going to start looking at my score compared to that scoring guide, which we have looked at in the score sheets section, and see if it falls in line with what I think the beer is. If I think it's a good beer, more than fair, but not very good or excellent, am I in that range? Is it 21 to 29? If not, I may need to go back and adjust my scores. Either direction. Maybe I'm scoring it too low or scoring it too high for what I think this beer is. Once I'm settled on that, I do want to note any flaws on this column that are important to this beer to point out to the brewer. This is very important in the judging exam. And then, of course, I want to do these slider boxes that we talked about. Those are very important. Those are the ones right here. Not only is it valuable information to the brewer, but it is also going to help your score in your judging exam. In fact, missing them is far worse than marking them against what the consensus is of the entire group. So that is it for this particular judging process. This was just a quick overview of what's in the exam guide because it's likely going to be in some way, shape, or form on your entrance exam. So it's important to know this. As far as actual judging of beers, going through the entire score sheet, writing down scores, writing down notes, filling out all sides of this form, we're going to be doing a lot of that in this course as we move on. In fact, very soon, after the next couple sections, we're going to get into our style studies, and that's when we're going to score a beer from every sub-style in the BJCP guidelines from category 1 to 26. They're going to be broken up throughout the course. We're eventually going to be doing all of them. So that's going to be a lot of practice and a lot of exposure to judging. And there's also going to be some sections on good judging practices, way to improve your judging vocabulary, every aspect that it takes to get a great score on your judging exam is going to be covered in this course. So don't worry if you missed anything in this lesson. This is far from over. This is literally just the beginning. So that's it for this lesson, and that's it for this section. So let's move on to section 4 of the program next.